session, right? So here we will just to see the overall maybe the overview about the agile DevOps, and maybe what are all the things we need to know, and then in this point of view, like the tools we have. And apart from that, so at the finally we will be creating maybe we will create Azure DevOps free trial account. So there we will do some play around, like maybe creating the pipeline, and so for all those steps we will be doing there to see today. Okay, so this is the agenda for our today's session. Like so for example, uh, the agile DevOps and what are all the tools, and then Azure DevOps, and we are going to create some free account in Azure DevOps, and then we will do some lab exercise. So this is the overall yeah, objective for this session for now. Okay, so maybe you can ask me, so why we want to discuss the agile now, and maybe what is the relation between agile and DevOps. So it'd be why we need to discuss agile. Okay, so from the agile practices only we are growing the DevOps, the set of practices and all. So mostly, right, the agile means so we will for entire maybe the product, right? So we will be developing based on the iteration based one, and for example for every 2 weeks or something we will have some deadline or goal. So and once we have completed, so we will do yeah, so once we have completed, so we will review the whatever we have done with from our dev environment. So we will be checking with maybe the clients, and if they are okay, then we will be proceeding for the maybe the deployment and all. So for example, so this is the approach, like we maybe iteration based development, and then maybe we will have a set of maybe clear goals what we are going to do in that particular sprint. And once it is completed, then we will be move it to maybe the production environment wherever, right? So here maybe if you're adding some of the concepts, like maybe if you are introducing some of the tools, maybe if you're automating the delivery everything, so then we can ease our process, and then we can bring the features to customers very quickly. Yeah, so that is the main objective. And yeah, so for example, right, so from that agile practices we are going to add some of the new set of maybe practices, so that will bring us the value to the delivery to the customers. So that is the thing we are going to discuss, agile DevOps. And maybe when it comes to tools, maybe what are the tools we are going to use. And so there are many tools, right? Even for example, when it takes it's Azure DevOps, it's not only the DevOps tool, there are many tools available in that market: Jenkins, Bamboo, GitLab, everything. So after reviewing the tools one, and then yeah, and then we are going to see Azure DevOps, and then we are going to create some free account and then lab exercise. Okay, so the next, yeah, so the what is the agile? So maybe like the, so that is the group of software development methodology and iteration based development.
Sorry,
Yeah,
so are you going
explain that. So it is just like a software development methodology. Yeah, how to maybe when we are creating the when in the software development life cycle, right? So how maybe we have to get the requirement from the business, and then maybe how to maybe manage all the stories in the maybe the Jira or task board, and maybe how we have to assign the particular task to dev team, and maybe the for each and every life cycle, right? So that is what we are maybe the agile is there, it's like a manifesto. So if you are doing like that, maybe we will have the good uh, maybe output actually. So for example, the when it's in the agile, right, maybe there will be the many things like you will be having the scrum master, and then product owner, and then the developer, and then the business, right? So for example, the product owner, right, so he will be getting the requirements from the client, and then he will be adding as the product backlog and all. Okay, and then the scrum master, so he is the one going to maybe get the status, and then getting maybe scheduling all the meetings, right, like sprint planning, and maybe the retrospective, and then the sprint review and the stand up call. So everything, like the scrum manager only, he will yeah, he will review actually. So for example, let's take like the product owner. Okay, so he's added some of the tasks in the backlog. For example, we have the one application, so that needs to be maybe we need to build some login screen. Okay, so in that login screen we need to have a maybe the maybe we need to accept Google authentication, Facebook authentication. Maybe that is the one kind of story, like maybe the product owner is asking, and then they will be adding into the product backlog list. Okay, and after that, what the scrum manager, maybe the scrum master, he will do is like maybe he will review all the backlog items. And so as I said already, right, the sprint. Okay, so the iterative based development means it's like a sprint. So for every sprint, like there will be some duration, so that will be based on their nature of work or how they are going to deliver it. So that is mostly like maybe the 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, something. Okay, so based on the developers velocity, and then the amount of work we need to do, so they will be taking like maybe we have the two developers, and maybe so for the 1 week of iteration, we can do maybe the we can complete the Google authentication part or the Facebook authentication, so that integration can we can do. So some kind of maybe analysis the scrum master and the product owner will do. And after that, right, the sprint planning meeting. So when it comes to the sprint planning, maybe they so in that maybe the scrum master will set up this meeting. So in this meeting, the participants would be the scrum master, and all the developers will be there. So there maybe the scrum master will review each and every backlog. Maybe he will ask maybe what is the maybe the story point. Okay, so maybe so that is basically like maybe complex or amount of work it will take for the particular for completing the particular task. Okay, so once maybe the maybe we can say like so this is the some simple task, so it will just take 3 story points. So some kind of maybe calculation will be there, so that we can discuss later, maybe that is more into agile. Okay, so maybe for example, maybe the at the end of the sprint planning meeting, so maybe the developers will know what are all the tasks that they need to start working on it. Okay, so maybe when the sprint is started, then maybe all the whatever the user stories they have discussed or the backlogs, so it will be added into the particular sprint, and they will be assigned the particular stories to the task owner. And from there onwards, yeah, they will log the hours, so whatever they are doing. Okay, and maybe as maybe someone said, uh, uh, yeah, so every day, right, so they will have a stand-up meeting. So it will be around the 10 to 15 minutes meeting. So there they will be discussing maybe the scrum master or the developer needs to convey, so what is the progress of the task, maybe what they are going to do next, and what they have did today. And if there is any road blocker, so the developer needs to raise the concern there, so that maybe the scrum master will check with the concern other team, if they can resolve it, so that maybe the before you starting on the next day or something, so you will get that issue resolved, so that you can continue working on it. Okay, so for example, so the sprint planning meeting is completed, and then the sprint also started. And so for example, now you are about to finish the sprint. Yeah. Okay, so now you are about to finish the sprint you have created earlier. Okay, so within the sprint, so you also have completed all the tasks. Okay, so which means that is good, so you have completed all the tasks you have assigned. And then the next thing is maybe the scrum master will schedule the sprint review meeting with the business team, and there they will ask, maybe they will show, so these are all the features we have developed in this sprint, and then immediately they also will give the feedback also. So for example, so this is not the for example, so the UI can be, they might be thinking something different, so this is not, they are not expecting that one, right? So that immediately within the sprint you will get the feedback from the client or the business, so that maybe you can work immediately and then you can correct it. So that is what. And also the one more thing is, maybe the agile, right? It will actually accept the changes. So for example, when you are for example, you are taken some of the backlog items in the particular sprint, but before that maybe there is some important features that maybe the business they are asking us to do. So based on the priority, maybe we can include the new task also in that sprint. It's not like whatever we have taken yearly in the sprint, so those things only we are going to complete. It's not like that, but based on the priority and based on the business needs, so we will be accepting the changes also. Okay. And also maybe those and all the acceptable nature, even because of that maybe we are taking other task, right? So because of that, definitely it will maybe there is some delay in uh, our already committed the user stories, right? But that is acceptable because we are adding a new stories because of the client requirement. And also maybe there can be some important production bugs also, maybe we want to give it to the high priority, right? So because of that it's happened. Okay. And so earlier, right, we are discussing on the sprint review. Okay. So there the maybe the dev team they will show what they have done, and then immediately the business team also they will give the feedback, and according to that maybe they will based on their feedback, if there is any changes they need to do, they will be completing in the, they will start working on the next sprint. Okay. And after that, maybe after completing the sprint review meeting, and then maybe after 2 days or something, so that is based on their time and all, so they will be setting up the sprint retrospective meeting. And there maybe the every team members, and then the maybe the business, maybe it's not like a business, yeah, maybe the dev team manager, and yeah, whoever in the project, right, everyone will be there. And then they will be discussing about like in that particular sprint, so what is went good, and what we went bad, and what we have to take the measure to improve the particular the for the bad things, right? So we need to take some actions to improve the process. Okay. So that is what they are going to see in the retrospective meeting, so that the same maybe if you are if there is some mistakes, right, so it will be fixed in the next maybe the next at the sprint and all, it will be fixed. So for example, so in this same sprint, right, maybe I'm just saying one example for the bad one. Okay. For example, maybe from our CI/CD pipeline, whenever the dev is completed the code, okay, so the code is automatically pushed to the QA environment. Okay. But maybe I know that maybe there is no lead time when the code is pushed to uh, a source code repository, and immediately it is pushed to the environment. But when it thinks in the QA perspective, but definitely even they don't know what is the maybe the what is the current state they are actually testing in. But in between, if you are doing some deployment, maybe for them it may be some difficult, like what is happened, so they are not able to understand, right? Then they might raise the concern like, no, you should not do the deployment based on the source code checked into the repository. So you have to deploy like maybe the daily, right? Maybe daily once we can run the bill, and so that maybe if there is any new code, so the next day only they have to deploy. So those kind of the action items, or even if you have any concern or anything, so you can be discussed in the retrospective call, so that could be fixed. Okay. So from that agile, I'm saying like the sprint planning, And so I'm just saying the terminologies here, like backlog. Okay, so the backlog means so the list of action items you need to be worked, so that you are kept in the backlog. Maybe after that only you will be taken into the sprint, and then you will be start working on it. Maybe they for just like for they will be just creating some placeholder, so that is like a backlog. Okay, and then the sprint planning. So there the scrum master will discuss with all the maybe the developers, and for the particular story, maybe what is the amount of work we need to spend. So those things and all will be finalized there. So for example, if you have the some velocity, so then maybe they will take additional backlog also. So otherwise uh, yeah, so that is about the sprint planning. And then the sprint review. So once after the completion of the sprint review, we will be show the demo to the business, and we will get the feedback immediately, and based on that we need to work on the future sprints and all. Okay, and apart from this retrospective, so there we will be discussing what we went bad, good, and what are all the improvements we can take. So those things we will be discussing here. And the scrum meeting, so the daily stand up, for example, you will be discussing what went good, what went bad, sorry, maybe the what is your progress on the current task. And yeah, and then if there is any roadblocker, then you can convey to the maybe the group, and then the scrum master will follow with concern team, and then they will be fixing it for you, so that it will be completed at the earliest. So those issues and all will be fixed. And yeah, so mostly like the sprint planning, right? For example, for the ideally most of the team, they will follow the 2 week sprint. So that is the maybe the nominal one. And apart from that, the stand up also mostly the the 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, and then the scrum, the agile team size also would be around the 4 to 5 peoples. And if they are having the more member of teams, maybe they will be splitted into multiple groups. Okay, but still that is based on the project. And also maybe if given some of the cases, we will be having like more than 10-15 members also, we will be in the same stand up call. But at the time, right, we cannot complete all the status within 10 to 15 minutes, so it will take some maybe 30 minutes and all. So that is still acceptable. So agile, right? So this is the software development methodology. Okay, for example, right, I am saying it like for every sprint we have to deploy to the maybe the after reviewing with business, we have to deploy to the production on something. Okay, and for once even in the during the sprint also, whenever the developer is push the code to git or something, then uh, yeah, so immediately it has to deploy in dev environment and as well as the QA. So that is based on the filter condition, right? So if anyone, right, if they did manually, so that will take some time, and we cannot maintain the consistent stability also. So that is why on top of the agile approach, we are integrating all the maybe the DevOps and then the CI/CD pipelines, so that actually it will ease the process. Maybe from the when it comes to the technical side, right? Maybe the deploying into dev and QA and then the production. So because, right, we are doing the iterative based development, so we will have the more frequent releases. Okay, so that is what the agile also, we need to do frequent cycles in order to deliver functionality to the customers. So we are broken down the futures. Okay, and once it is completed, we will be deploying it. So which means like we will have a many releases to complete our project. Okay, so if you are doing it manually, it's not a good way, or we cannot do some consistent behavior. So that is why on top of the agile approach, we are adding the we are integrating the CI/CD pipelines and then the tools. So if we can easily automate that, so that even so it would be easy to deliver the features to the clients. So it's basically like on top of the DevOps, sorry, agile on top of the agile development approach, we are integrating the CI/CD pipeline, so that gives the some more maybe the yeah, it gives some flexible and then some more value to answer. Okay, so the DevOps, the that is the short form of development and operations. Okay, so in a traditional, right, like in the waterfall, maybe the developers will be there, and in the middle the QA will be there, and then the operations team will be there. Okay, so whenever the development is completed the code, so they will be manually putting into the dev environment for their testing, and they will be deploying into the maybe the QA also they might deploy manually or some kind of workflow they would do. And finally the operations team, they will do the production deployment. They will snapshot the source code they want to deploy, and then they will take on the build, and then they will be deploy into the production environment. So in the traditional approach, right, the problem is the development and operations. Okay, so both of them are different peoples. Maybe in our same in our so in our same participants also, so many of them, they will be into the development background, and some of them into the administration background, so they will be doing the deploying activities and all. So for example, let's take we are deploying some Java application. It's like a API application. The developer is completed the code, and it is perfectly working fine in the dev environment. Okay, but when it goes to maybe when we are asking the operations team to deploy the code into another environment, the problem happening like, so they will be following some set of standard practices to get the build, so everything. Okay, but even it's not like the we are having the source code, we are taken the build, and we can just simply deploy it, but that's not the requirement for deploying on a particular application. So we need to, there are many cases, right? For example, uh, so we need to have the runtime environment, and what are all the dependencies, and if there is any firewall or something, so those we have to enable the particular port. And also maybe there are many cases. Okay, so for example, if when the maybe when the operations team they have deployed into the particular environment, so if it is not working, or if the application is not up, and then they will be checked with development team, and even the dev team also, they will be clearly say like it is perfectly working fine in the local environment. It's not a issue with the source code. Maybe it could be something related to the infrastructure, or is there many thing, right? The networking, and the maybe the framework version, or maybe there are many possibilities, right? So that the operation team, they are not aware of the development, and the development team even they don't know what they are doing and what is happening with the operations time, operation side. So what they're actually doing it for the deployment. Okay, because the both of them are like they don't know each other, so that they are so they can't understand also if there is any issues. So even they can't understand, so maybe they will be think in their perspective only. And then yeah, even we cannot say wrong also. For example, the dev team, they will have a scope till the local environment, then they can say like it's working fine. Even they cannot see anything in the production environment. Even they cannot see what is the environment it looks like, and how they are deploying anything. They even they also can't check anything. Okay, and operations team also, they are not aware of the source code and then development, so those things they won't be aware. So that is the problem happening. So that's why they are integrating both the development and operations, so that maybe the DevOps should know the, so that if there is any issues, so they can identify. Okay, if it is the DevOps person, right? So for example, we have to pass the DB connection string. For example, the particular build is expecting the placeholder, so that is the connection string. So that maybe if there is anything, it will check with the database. And so because, right, if it is not established, then it could be definitely an issue. Okay, so and also before you are mentioning the configuration, the connection string, okay, the server host name, username, password, so you have to provide the maybe you need to open the port. Okay, for example, your production server will be in some places, and then the database server will be in another place. Okay, if there is in between there are two or three firewalls, so you have to enable the communication between the source and destination, and so the particular port we have to be enabled, so then only the communication happen, right? So those kind of issues and all, the DevOps can be fixed immediately, because they know the both development and plus operations. So for this one, so for facilitate this process, even they are using many of the tools. So that is actually is the process actually, even so the many of the tools, right? So for example, if when it comes to Azure DevOps, even the we can just create the CI/CD pipeline, and then when the code is pushed, then automatically it will be deployed to the all the environments, so we can configure that one. So that is why the development and operations. Okay, and so you are clear with this first point, right? So we so the it is the short form of development and operations. So now you know why we are combining both the peoples. So for what the benefits, we are integrating both. So you got that one. Yeah. So and then so this is the DevOps is a culture. It's not like maybe the tool or something. It is like a culture, and then a set of practices to combine people, process, and technologies. So here maybe what we are going to achieve is like shorten development cycles. So for every development cycle, right? So we will have some future ready, and we can immediately deploy into the production or whatever the environment we have. So for example, for maybe the Amazon or maybe the big clients and all, right? So for every day they will do hundreds of deployment to the production. So that is all possible because of the DevOps, maybe the culture. Otherwise, right? So in the traditional, maybe for after 2 to 3 months we will be doing the deployment. It's not like that. For the shortened development cycles, so which means for every small features, once it is ready, we are incrementally we are updating the production application. So that is the shortened development cycles. And then the next one is the increased deployment frequency. Like so earlier, right? If you are doing something manually, it will take time consuming process. Maybe if you are doing with the CI/CD pipelines, we can do automate. So the our work is the initial setup only will be our work, like creating the build and deployment pipeline. So once it is stabilized, then we can just click maybe the run build or the deploy. So it will be deploy into the particular environment within 2 to 3 minutes. So that, right, we can do multiple deployments in a day. So that's why that we are we so increased deployment frequency. Okay, and yeah, so that is based on the alignment. So for example, they are broken into the multiple features, right? So it is more alignment with the business, and then we are deploying into the production. Okay, so the DevOps is the culture and practices to combine people, process, and technologies are the tool set to shorten development cycles, and then increase the deployment frequency, and more dependable release which alignment with business. Okay, and the next one is the first culture of collaboration between the developers and then operations. Okay, so this is the first culture, right? So earlier we don't have any, so this is the first culture to collaborate the developers and then operations team. Okay, and so the culture has given rise to a set of practices like continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous delivery, monitoring. Even there are many the practices, right? It is all about the best practices. Yeah, if you the branching strategy, even I'm not mentioning here. So the branching strategy, everything actually. So if you are following the best practices, yeah, so definitely we can increase the throughput, and then we can reduce the cycle time. Actually, the cycle time means maybe for once we are taken the futures, right? So how long it is taken to the production one, maybe after the development is completed, the dev and then the coding and then deploying to the production. So how long it is taken? So for example, the traditional workflow, right? Let's take an example. Maybe the traditional means like they will do maybe analysis, design, development, code, and then they will do the manual deployment something. Okay, so for example, this whole phases, right, it is taken around maybe 2 to 3 months, maybe in our DevOps, right? So here within we are broken down the application into the multiple futures, and then for every sprint we will have the goal of these are all the futures we are going to develop, test, and then deploy into the production. So that, so here we have, right, the only the 2 weeks maximum, even that is based on the future. If we have to broken down as small as possible, so that yeah, we can incrementally add it to the production. Okay, so those all practices, it will helping us to achieve the above 3 points, like shorten development cycles and increase deployment frequency, so and all those things. And yeah, as we said, right, maybe the DevOps and Agile often go hand in hand. So which means like, so without DevOps, the Agile is complex, and then without Agile, the DevOps also it's not possible kind of thing. So both has to go in a same manner, so that uh, we can reduce the cycle time, and as fast as we can deploy the features to the production. Okay, so then the customer would be happy, because it's, if it is taking normally like 4 to maybe 4 to 6 months, but we are incrementally deploying the features to the production, and also maybe we are getting instant feedback from the customers, so that we are correcting into the next iteration. So that's what the customers also, they will be happy. So that is why now everyone maybe focus going to the agile and DevOps based yeah, methodology for any new projects. Okay, so in with the combination of agile and DevOps, we can achieve the faster maybe the delivery to the production, and as well as we are ensuring the quality also. So otherwise, right, from by just following the agile, the one maybe the one thing is, for every time if you are doing manually, it's the complex process. Okay, and then even we cannot maybe systematically detect if there is any vulnerabilities or something, so those things and all we cannot monitor. Okay, so that is why on top of the agile practices, we are adding the DevOps practices also. It will give some, yeah, good valuable to the customers, the faster delivery along with the quality. And so there are many futures actually, maybe we will discuss in the next one also. So at least you are good with the agile and DevOps, right? It's both, and both of them are different. Agile is the software development methodology, how you have to maybe the take the maybe, so the agile is like from that from you got the story from the product owner, and then how you are releasing to the production. Like in between there are many things, right? Sprint planning, and then the stand up, and then retrospective, the sprint review. So those things, it will ensure like maybe if there is any blocker, we can get that immediately. So those practices, it will yeah, it will ensure the good maybe the faster delivery. If there is any issues, yeah, we can get that one immediately. If there is any blocker or anything, we can get the feedback immediately. So that is the about the agile. And DevOps is the culture and practices when you are adding like continuous integration, the testing, delivery monitoring, and all, right? So additionally we can easily implement the agile methodology actually. So continuous integration means how you are adding the source code to the existing application without breaking anything. And then continuous testing means as part of the build process, you are running all the automated test, so that you are ensuring there is no effect in the existing functionalities. The continuous delivery means you are deploying the you are so from that pipeline you can deploy to the production or any other environment very easily, or maybe after getting some approval and all, right? So for example, before deploying into the uh, QA environment, so that in between you can have some predefined approval flow, like before deploying into the QA environment, you should get the approval from the QA team. And also when you are moving from QA to production, maybe you need to get the approval from the business team or the your from your manager. So those approval process and all, we can set it in the continuous delivery. So those and all the some of the best practices, so that is based on the project needs. So those things and all we can easily do here. And then the continuous monitoring means, from that agile, right, they are not talking anything about the monitoring of the application. But from the DevOps, right, once you deployed into the production environment, you will be monitoring the there are many monitor tool available. So if there is any request failure in the API server, then immediately it will alert us, and then we can fix it immediately. So those kind of practices, it will help us to improve the whatever the agile is providing as the advantage. Yeah. And then so earlier we discussed what is DevOps, and now we are going to discuss what is a not a DevOps. So this is term, right, so it will confuse the maybe many times we are confused with tool, but those tools and all essential to be successful in the setting up the DevOps culture and process. But it is DevOps, it's not on alone your tools. Those tools, it will help us to improve the process, and then because, right, those tools, it will help us to automate many things, so that there is no manual intervention. So everything is the initial setup. So once the initial setup is standardized, then we don't need to work on anything. So all the pipelines, everything, it will work automatically. Okay. It is not like the next one is, it is not like a standard, like you have to follow this way alone. So for example, maybe we can say like whenever the code is pushed to the repository, you immediately you have to deploy into the dev environment or Q environment. So it is not like any standard. So that is based on the project. Maybe that is the best practices. So whatever the best practices, it will suits for our application need, then we can follow that. There is no standard thing in DevOps here, like we have to follow in this way only. It's not like a that one. So maybe we can say like the agile is the standard. So for example, the agile means you have to follow in this way alone, like the product owner will create the backlog, and then the scrum master needs to create the sprint planning session with the dev team and everyone, and they need to collect the story points, and then they need to set up the retrospective sprint review. So that is the standard procedure. But in a DevOps, it's not like a standard. It's all about the best practices. Even we are having evolving many of the tools, right? So when we are using many the latest tools, maybe it will maybe remove or avoid some kind of manual interventions, because it will take care of all the things like the rollback, rollout, and so all those things it will take care. It's just about the best practices alone. And also the DevOps is not a product, but there are many product available, like so the it's not like a product. Okay, for example, in Microsoft, right, so they are giving the Azure DevOps as the service actually. Okay, so they are having the end-to-end tools integrated with everything, and then it is actually those tools, it will help us to adapt the DevOps cultures easily. So those product will help us, but it's not like a product. And for example, from the Amazon side, they will give the AWS code commit, and then from Azure DevOps, and then from Atlassian products, right, that is the very well known thing. So they are the vendor for the Jira, right? So they will be having the Bamboo, and then GitLab, GitHub. So there are many products available. So what I'm trying to say here is the DevOps is not like a product. Okay, but there are many products available in the market to easily adapt the DevOps culture, because they will have the end-to-end tools in the same service, so that it is easy to adapt the DevOps culture. Okay, and also it's not like a job title. So that is what I want to uh, add here. So if you have any query, so the next we are going to see the goal of DevOps. Okay, like maybe the earlier what is the responsibility of the developers and operations, and what we are going to achieve by using the DevOps culture. Okay, so I have said right earlier, the developers and operations, the developer will ensure the speed of the development with quality. Okay, and operations team the stability of the deployment infrastructure and deployment platform. Maybe you may be heard about the developers, so what they will do, so that is their responsibility, right? So from the operation side, so for example, uh, when we are giving some code to the deploy into the production environment, so sometime their deployment is working and some other time the deployment is not working, means they are not maintaining the stability, right? So the deployment should be stable. So for example, if there is any a broken happen, so at least they should be able to roll back the previous working version. So those and all, it will ensure like the stability of the deployment. And then the infrastructure and deployment platform also, the infrastructure and deployment platform means, so for example, obviously for every environment, every environment like dev, QA, and UAT or production. So each and every environment should be in the consistent manner. So for example, I am going to deploy the .NET application. Maybe my application runtime version is 2.1. So in a dev, we are having the 2.1 2.1 version, but in the QA environment, right, I'm just having the latest version 3.0.0, so that the same build it won't be work in the both environment, because the runtime, the underlying the runtime version is different. So that they need to have the those also needs to be accountable, right? And then the deployment platform, so the developers accountable for the development, the speed of the development with quality, and operations team the more into the deployment, and so mostly the infrastructure and the deployment platform, so they need to be have the consistent environment, right? And then they should be able to spin up the infrastructure maybe within a matter of time. So there are many tools available to automatically provisioning the infrastructure and all, so that we can just change the arguments we are passing it, so that we can easily the identical to the dev, we can easily spin up the QA and production in a matter of time. Okay, so this is the responsibility of the developers and operations. But when it goes to DevOps, the all the things, right, we are going to do that, like the speed of the delivery, we are maybe we are not going to develop anything in the source code, but we have to ensure by integrating some of the best practices, right? The continuous integration, the deployment, we are increasing the deployment frequency, those and all, it will ensure the speed of the development. Okay, and also the operations, the stability, right? So here, like maybe anyway, right, we are creating the pipeline. Okay, so maybe the initially it may have some problem and issues. So once we have stabilized or standardized, then after that it won't be having any issues, so that we can easily achieve the stability and all. The infrastructure and deployment platform also we are going to maintain as like other environments, because the same code only we are going to move to the other environment as well. Okay, so those things and all, with help of the CI/CD pipelines, we will be achieving. So finally, at the end of the things, right, we will be achieving the fast time to market. Like when the code is completed from the dev end, so how long it takes us to move it to the production. So earlier the market, that would be good, right? So that is the one kind of the DevOps goals. And then minimize the deployment failures. So for example, we have created the CI/CD pipeline, and the yesterday it was working fine. Maybe when I'm running that deployment now it is failing. So which means like we have to minimize the deployment failures. So we have to find the root cause. So what could be the problem? So those things and all, yeah, we can for example, some cases we are missing the configuration. Maybe the developer there added some new property or the configuration, but that we are not adding in the pipeline. So those things and all, how we are going to standardize the process. So those things and all, so basically we will be minimizing the deployment failures. And then immediate recovery from failure. So for example, uh, we are deploying a new application, maybe new version to that production one. Maybe after we found that the maybe it's not the expected behavior. So immediately what we should do is at least we should be able to roll back to the previous version, previous working version. Okay, so that is about the immediate recovery from failure. So otherwise, maybe if it is the because of the source code issue, there is no other way. So the developer has to fix, and after that only we can deploy. But apart from that, right, maybe if there is any disaster happens, like maybe if there is any disaster, something happened, but at the time we have to maybe route the traffic to another, maybe the backup data center or the secondary data center. So this is how we have to build the application actually from the infrastructure standpoint. Okay, so that is about the immediate recovery from failure. And maybe even it's not alone like the disaster something. So sometimes like we will be having the 4 GB of the memory that's something like RAM, right? So maybe the developer is not maybe not properly closing the objects. So which means like it constantly it will add the bit by bit, and finally it will overflow the stack. So at the time our application will crash. So those kind of scenarios and all, what we should do is at least we have to definitely we have to alert them, the dev team, that they have to fix all those leakages in their memory leakages in their application. And from the for the temporary standpoint, the applications should restart automatically. So those and all the immediate recovery from failure. And you will be built. And then currently what you are currently doing it, like you are just taken the build and then providing it to the maybe the support team, and they are deploying it. Okay, so if there is any failure happen, again you have to go to the previous working code, and then you need to take a build, and then you have to provide to the operations team, and they will do the rollback. So this is somewhat the complex process. Okay, but in the DevOps CE/CD, the best practices, what we will do is like, for example, we will check out the code, we will take in the build, and finally we will be pushing the artifact, right? The artifact are built to the artifact repository. Like there are many repositories, right? Like JFrog or the Nexus, and maybe in the .NET the Nugget repository, right? So we will be pushing the DLL to the Nugget repository by tagging the version. Like currently you are deploying the 1.0.0 version. Okay, so that you have deployed now, and you have the backup of the same copy in the artifact repository. Okay, and currently, right, so our you have given the new build, maybe you are run the new build, and then the 101 will be created. And if you think like there is a problem with 101, so we will be having an option to deploy the 100 version, because the same version, right, it is there in the our artifact like Nexus. So we have the backup of all the deployed version, right? So 100 101, so that they won't ask you for the again the build. We will be just taken the existing build version, then we will be deploying it.
So whatever the previous version we have in the artifact, that's what is going to get deployed.
Yeah, correct. So otherwise, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, right? So for example, you are taken the again new build. It's not like exactly same like the one which is working earlier, right? Because you in your working maybe in your local environment also, maybe you have upgraded the .NET the runtime or .NET SDK. So obviously even there could be chances of single bit of changes also. We cannot ensure that the same one we have built earlier. So that is why we will be taken the build and then we will be storing it to the artifact repository, and after that only we will be pushing it to the production one. And if there is any failure, you will be just taken the previous build 100 and then you will be deploying it so that the earlier state can be maintained. And that is the one practice, and I will say you the another one practice also. Okay. And
Okay.
in the DevOps, right, there is a concept called the blue green deployment. Okay. So for example, currently your application, right, your live application, the blue one, okay, that we can refer as the blue one. So what you are going to deploy the new application, right, that is the green. You can consider it like green. Okay. So there in the production, right, there could be the two slots, the blue and green. Okay. So the active traffics will be listening in the blue one, that is the uh, current live app, right? So whenever you are doing the new version of the deployment, you will be pushing it to the green slot. Okay. So there you will be do some kind of testing, and once everything you are thinking like it is good and we can give it to the user, at the time you will just swap the green to blue. So at the time, so the green will become the live application, so that you won't be facing any the deployment broken issues and all. So this is also one of the best practices, like by just following the blue green, right? So we don't need to do the rollback and all, rollback scenario and all. We don't want to do the previous working version. We don't want to redeploy the previous working build version. If you are following the blue green deployment, you can just swap the blue to green again. That's it. So you got it
Got it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this situation, so there will be like two similar servers we will be maintaining. So one will
Yeah.
be exposed to the clients, and then the other one will be like a backup. And then
Yeah.
on the backup, we are doing the green implementation.
Yeah. So for example, so maybe you have maybe currently, right, you have the app server. So that is why you are thinking it like we need to maintain the two servers or not. Because in the, by achieving the blue green, right, it definitely,
Correct.
as you said, we need to have the two servers. But that is why we need to use the proper tools, like as you said, right, in the app services earlier. So the app services, they are giving the features called, we can have the number of slots also there. So at the time you have to go with the app services or Kubernetes kind of deployment platform, so that your blue green deployment everything will be very easy. But if you want to achieve the same practice in your traditional web server, or that would be somewhat complex only to achieve that and all. Because otherwise, right, you need to have the two different server, you need to pay for the two servers. That's not the ideal approach, right? If you're going with the app services with compared maintaining the two virtual servers, it is the less cost only when you're going to the app services or Kubernetes kind of platform. So there
Got
they
it.
will be giving a future called the blue green and all in the simple manner. But if you want to achieve the same thing in our IAS server or Tomcat in our same VM, that could be somewhat complex. That would be somewhat complex actually.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, team. Yeah. So then the next one, the traditional workflow. Okay. So that is the same thing we have discussed already. They will be going like analysis, design, development, testing, and finally the deployment one. So for example, before starting the new phase, so they will be completing the existing one, then only they will be moving to the next one. So here the problem, like maybe in that agile and all, maybe agile and DevOps and all, for every 2 week maybe you are getting some feedback to the customers. Okay. So that if there is any deviation from their expectation and our actual thing, we can immediately we can fix that one. But in the agile waterfall and all, maybe after developing something like after 6 months, it's not easy to change, right? So that is the thing. And after that, when maybe the developer is testing, when the QA is gives the sign off, right, the operations team will start the deploy. But when we are deploying to the production one, maybe if the because of some other dependencies like the networking, maybe the firewall, or maybe the sometimes it could be due to the source code also. At the time, we don't know who would be the responsible for the particular issue. Okay, because currently we have the two team, the operation and dev team. The dev team will blame the operations team, they will be having the issues. The operations team will say that there is some problem with uh, the dev team, so that we cannot get the maybe fix maybe immediately. So that maybe the dev team will say like the whatever it is there in the dev environment, it is working fine. But the operations team, they will follow, but it won't work because some other maybe the version compatibility. So there are many things, right? So that is what happening in the water flow. So if because we any queries there, you can ask me.
Uh, Actually, the question that I have is on DevOps. So where is the DBA feeds? Not the developer, but the DBA.
Okay.
Is it on the monitoring side or deployment side? Or
So you're asking the
where?
DBA. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. For example, mostly, right, the DBA, which itself the database administrator. Okay. So
Correct.
mostly they won't be come into the maybe I am just saying it for the application side. Okay. For example, I'm creating a maybe let's take Amazon website, right? So there will be
Mhm.
the database developer, and then maybe the application developer who writes the code in Java and or the .NET or something, and then they will do the testing team, and then the DevOps team also for the deployment. But here the DBA maybe they can be act as the DevOps, but yeah, maybe in the monitoring side. So maybe I'm saying one example. Okay, for example, we have a one application, so we have to deploy. Okay, but not all the times we just want to deploy the source code alone. We will be having maybe the application will use the database, and then the database also, when we are doing the application migration, we need to maybe the deploy the maybe the consent script also, for example the table script and all, right? So
Mm.
along with that application code, the DBA also, maybe the database changes also, it should go, like the schema and other constraint, everything it should go. But mostly the DBA, maybe they can act as, maybe they are coming from the administration background, right? Maybe they can just learn other concepts also, they can act as the maybe the DevOps, or otherwise maybe within the agile team, right? Maybe you will be working as the DBA, and if there is any maybe enhancement or anything related to the database related activities, you will be taking care of it. Maybe the agile team, right? Maybe you will be part of the DBA, and the maybe the dev team will be there, testing team will be there, and maybe you, even you also will have your own maybe assignments, right? Like maybe you need to understand the maybe if you are a database developer, maybe if there is some migration application, so you need to understand the existing schema, and then you need to build the new schema as per the new application. So definitely it could be some kind of task, right? So that you need to work on it. So either you can work as the database developer, or by just learning all the other stuffs, you have to act as the maybe the DevOps also, because in the same CI/CD pipelines we have to integrate the database changes also. So definitely the DevOps person should know the database knowledges also. Maybe if the application needs the database.
Mhm.
So you got it right, my bro?
Actually, I didn't because so
Okay.
we have a new project, so they are assigned
Okay.
someone,
Okay.
but we don't know really where to fit, and yeah, it's ongoing. It's not started yet. I was like trying to understand this
Okay.
where to fit. the DBA, the database administrator, because we have developers, and on the operation side also we have app DBAs, but we have system DBA also. I don't know where it fits, that system DBAs, except that deploying the code on production side, and I'm just thinking that way. I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah, maybe
But
what,
yeah.
maybe otherwise, maybe I'm having one questions. For example, what is the nature of your project? It is like application migration or database migration?
No,
Or
it's a new release. Yeah, it's application release.
okay, okay. So then maybe your role could be like
Like usually policy, it's I think every month or so there is a policy release.
oh, policy means uh, okay. Sorry, I'm not aware of the term.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a policy or application release. So
okay.
yeah,
Maybe
so
yeah.
it's on the application side, but
Okay,
it touches the database. So we used to use some tool, implementation tool. So, but now they are trying to use CI/CD, but I don't know where to fit our team would be
okay, okay. Maybe
in the system. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, maybe I will give some recommendations like,
sure.
but mostly I am working on some of the database migration as well. Okay, so in that
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm saying right the DevOps tools. Maybe there are many tools available in the market. It will maybe it will allow us to easily adopt the DevOps culture. Maybe in your case, maybe if this is something like maybe you need to incrementally update the maybe the database changes. Okay, so for example
Correct,
in
like
your,
running the code on production,
yeah,
then get the logs, and like move forward. Like if it's successful, if not, they will come up and fix and push to back and roll back, something like that.
yeah,
Just I'm not clear actually.
yeah,
Just
maybe yeah, if they are saying it like this is the thing, you can just explore about the Redgate the database
yes, they are using Redgate, and also the plan is to use Redgate and also Git
okay, okay, yeah, maybe
as
what,
the control version, yeah,
yeah,
as version control Redgate,
okay, okay,
and also
yeah,
this
maybe,
Azure.
yeah, so what
Sorry,
I'm thinking it
Redgate.
like
Yeah,
for example you will be write the schema everything as code, okay, and
right.
then you will be pushing it to the maybe Git repository, and then
Mhm.
maybe whenever we are running the database, maybe the application migration, right, you need to have a one more task also called maybe the DB sync up or some kind of things. There we will be executing the Redgate step. Okay, so there what it will do is like maybe in your local repository, right, you will be having the source code, maybe whatever you have written. Okay, and then the Redgate tool, it will match both of the state, your Git repository the code, and then your database state. And if you have added any new columns, then only the new columns will be added in the database. So you got it, my bro. So for
Yeah, I got it. So do you think we will have some kind of project on this one, or just what tool we are using
yeah,
for this?
yeah. Currently, right, the
We
DevOps,
want to.
maybe there are many tools. Okay, maybe if you are working for the database migration, the Redgate, so it's just like
Redgate.
integration. Maybe the DevOps is the integration tool, so that you
Mhm.
need to know. Maybe we will be showing some demo of the maybe how to integrate the maybe Azure service integration. So that is the ready-made one. But the Redgate and all,
Right,
it is the licensed one. Even we cannot try. If you want to do something, then it would be
right.
some separate session actually. But if you know the Azure DevOps something well, then you can easily integrate the Redgate also. It's something like all the other tools integration.
Okay. So the red gate is this, I mean, is it, what is exactly, I mean, I know the version control is Git, but
Yeah.
does it implement or substitute
Okay.
Jenkins for
Okay.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not substitute for Jenkins or anything. Okay. For example, I'm just saying one example. So currently you have the schema, create table script. Some schema is there. You have deployed into the dev environment. Okay. So if you are deploying the same script again in the dev environment, it should work or not. It will run the script successfully or it's not.
Mm.
Because it won't, right? Because the already the create table is already exist. So the next time you have to give the alters command only if there is any
Correct.
changes. Okay, so that is the maybe for example when you are incrementally adding the futures, right? So for example you have the create tables statement, and the next time you are adding the new column, some of the phone number or email id or ssn. So some of the new fields if you are adding means it will just check the both the statements. It will just check both state. For example, the state which are there in your git repository and then the database. So for example, if you want to add some new column in your database, you have to modify in that git repository. When you're running the redgate setup, it will automatically update the table in the database. So you don't need to run every command, or you don't want to have separate script also. Maybe what are all the script you have to run for the particular release and all. You can just maintain one state in your local, and then the database state will be there. It will just sync up the two, and then it will maybe it will update the database schema based on their state present in the git repository, whether you want to delete the column or whether you want to change the constraint everything. Okay, it's
So
like
can it work globally also? Like, I mean, for deployment of
yeah,
one
it
code
is.
on different servers at a time?
Yeah, you can deploy at the same time. You can deploy in another environment also. For example, if you are running particular Git, the particular code available in Git, right? You are deploying in the dev environment. Okay, the same command, if you deployed in the QA environment, the similar set of the schemas will be there in the QA also. But the
Okay.
database, the migration, the insert, those DML won't be copied. But I'm just saying for the database schema. Okay, so maybe yeah, we can discuss that one
Yeah.
after that one also. Okay, but it's like
Okay.
the database, the schema as code approach. So far, that is the reason the Redgate we are using it. So maybe in traditionally, if you want to deploy manually, it is the very complex. If you are using the Redgate, it will be the very easy. You can just update the code in git, then you don't need to confuse like what is the current state in the dev qa and production and all. You don't need to be worry about anything. The redgate will take care of everything actually.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, team.
Thank you.
So the next one is the DevOps flow. So for example, in this flow, the developer will create the code, and once the code is pushed to the repo, the automatic trigger will start the build automation test execution and deploy into the another environment. So it is not like a flow just for you are all beginner, right? I'm just saying for an example only. Maybe from when we are going in the subsequent sections and all, we will discuss it more. But just for a DevOps flow, what it is like, maybe the developer will create the code, and then developer will push it to the repo. The automated trigger the trigger will start the automatic build and test execution and deploy to the further environment also. And once it is deployed into the environment, and so we have the best practices for continuous monitoring, right? So the monitoring tool will actually test the maybe the deployment and the application status. If there is any failure or any anomalies, then it will send the alert to us, and then we can take any actions like whether we want to maybe restart or roll back. So those kind of decision we can make there. Okay. And maybe, yeah, if that issue is simpler, okay, so for example the deployment is broken, okay, then the monitor send the alert so that we have reverted to the previous working version. Okay. So then next, maybe if there is any maybe the deadline that particular code has to move within the maybe the 12 o'clock, by 12 o'clock something, then the developer they can start looking on it, and then they can is deploy into, they have to fix the code in their environment, in their source code, and then they can take in the bill, and then they have to move to the QA. There the QA team they can verify, and then immediately we can deploy to the production also if everything is goes well. So because even everything is automated, right, uh, it won't be any big time consuming process. The only consuming process is so whether the how long the dev team they will take for the particular issue. Okay. So with the DevOps practice, even before the customer is realizing the issue or the particular bug, so before that we can identify it, and then we have to fix that one. So we will get the issue before the customers are realizing it, so that at least before they are notifying it, we will know, and we can start working on it. So this is how the DevOps flow at a high level it will works. So team, if you have any queries, you can ask. So it's like developer will create the code, and then code will be pushed to the repository. The CI/CD pipeline, right? There we will have the definition for when it should trigger and all, so that it will automatically start the build and automated test script execution and deploy to the other environment. Okay. Once it is deployed, the monitoring, the tool will monitor if there is any failure in the deployment or the anomalies in that application behavior. We will be roll back to the previous working version. And if that issue is simpler, then the developer they can fix it, and then we can move it to the production also. It all will once the code is ready, right, so then for deploying to the production it will just take 5 to 10 minutes only. It won't be any much uh, time taking process. And also here the advantage is like even without the customer is realizing the particular bug, we can identify it before reaching out to them. We can at least we can start working on it. Okay. Maybe we will discuss on this flow, maybe the monitoring, the planning, design, and deploy, validate, monitor. So all those stages we will come to that maybe when we are doing the pipeline creation. But for now, maybe the DevOps flow, this one would be a good starting for you all. So any queries, team? Oh, okay, I think we are good. Um, Okay, so now, right, so what are all the skills we need to have? So,
Sorry.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
the automation part would be on the test environment only, or in production?
Uh,
Should
sorry,
be on test only, right?
can you
The
please come?
automation part. If
Okay,
you go back to the first, the previous
okay.
slide. So like automation, like if there is any change pushed to the repository, then it will be automatical test execution. So it should be only automated on test, right? Not on production.
No, that is based on our maybe requirement, maybe in our repository, right? For example, we will be having many branches. Under the repository, we will have many branches. Maybe when you are pushing it to the particular branch, it will be deploy the auto deployment to the dev environment, and after they have moved the code to the QA branch or any testing branch, So it will start the deployment to the QA environment. Once you have moved to the master branch or something, it will be moved to the production environment. So that is all. We can set it up based on our project expectation, and uh, so we can configure that one. Maybe yeah, we can configure automated deployment till production also.
Is it best practice?
Yeah, maybe sometimes, right? Maybe some kind of banking and financial projects and all, they won't allow, because in between we need to have the approval process in place. But in other, the retail, the Amazon or any other application, right? They will be daily deploying maybe hundreds of deployments. Yeah, then the automated deployments, it's fine only. So yeah, that is fine. Even uh, maybe it's a next level of maybe the advanced future, but to follow that and all, we need to have the correct tooling. Otherwise, maybe we can't do the automated and all. Maybe currently the red gate and all you are having, right? So we know, so those and all we can have it, but without having the red gate kind of tools, we cannot think of the automated deployments in the deployment and all. It is the complex process only. We need to have the correct tooling for the particular features that we are going to try.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. So team, so far we have discussed, right, like the development and operations. Okay. So we need to have, so these are all the goods to have skills. Okay. At least maybe you will be having any one of the skill set, like agile, maybe the cloud, maybe some of them can be in the server administration or DB administration, application development. So it could be something like anything like .NET, Java, Python or Node, anything. And then the networking knowledge, database security. I think we will be working on all those of things, but maybe it's not like 100%. We need, at least we need to have 30 percentage of skills to start with that. And maybe at least you need to have some background of in any one of this area. So I hope, yeah, you all have at least any one of the skills. Maybe you don't need to worry if you are not aware of other skills, maybe that we can learn. Okay,
Mm.
team. So in this slide, right, we will be discussing the what are all the tools maybe that will help us to adapt the DevOps culture. Maybe for mostly for the maybe the automation point of view. Maybe not. So as you can see, maybe here we can ask that the database automation tool also, that is the maybe the Redgate. There are many tools, even there are more than 100, so it can be more than that. But for a high level, whatever the tools we are using mostly are in the industry practice, what they are using mostly, so those tools only I'm adding here. Okay. And the continuous integration like Jenkins, Azure DevOps, GitLab, GitHub. So for example, as you know already, the Git is for the source control management. Okay. But even so, even they are also evolving by providing some of the other features also, like the build pipelines and deployment pipelines. So for example, the GitHub and all started with the public hosting repository, and they are adding GitHub actions to maybe those features and all will helps to achieve the DevOps culture. Similar like GitLab and Azure DevOps and Jenkins. So the Jenkins, that is the wide known. So that is the first CI tool, and after that, these are all the tools are evolved, and then still maybe for every month or something, they will incrementally they will add the features actually. Okay. And then the continuous deployment also, the integration means how we are adding the new feature without breaking the existing functionalities. So and along with that, with ensuring the code quality and uh, maybe, so those and all the continuous integration will do. And then the continuous deployment, maybe once the build is taken and how we are deploying it, maybe the, so they are also from the Azure DevOps, right? We will be creating the DevOps release pipeline, and GitLab also there are many pipelines are there. And then the source code management here. So there are many source code management, and widely used one is the Git. So that is the open source tool. On top of the open source tool, the Bitbucket, Azure repos, and the GitLab and all, they have added some of new features, and then they are giving the giving as the service to the maybe the customers. Okay, but mostly like how we are achieving the source code, maybe how we are managing the source code, maybe in the source code, right? So in the same project there will be many peoples are working. For example, in the same project source code, maybe the 10 peoples will be working, and also they will be working in the different time zone or different area, right? So that if you don't have any such tools, then definitely the code conflicts and all it can happen, then resolving it will be very very harder. So that is why we are using some kind of source code source control management, and there are many best practices. So we will mostly we will see tomorrow on this one. And then the continuous monitoring, the continuous monitoring I have said, right? Once we deployed into the platform, and after that we have to the monitoring tools will monitor like what are all the requests coming into our application, and then how many maybe how many requests got error, and maybe for each request how long the latency is. So those kind of metrics we can capture from that monitoring tool, and based on that we can so based on that, yeah, based on that we can provide the solution basically. Okay, and then the artifact management, as I said already, like the Nexus, JFrog, Azure artifacts, maybe you have to understand the source control and then artifact. The source control, it is the source code itself, like Java, the class file, or the Java file, right? It is just like a source code. But the artifact means we will be compiling the source code, and after that we will be getting some binary file. So that is the artifact. So those files will be used for the deployment. Okay, so that is the artifact, like Nexus, JFrog, Azure artifacts, and Nugget repository. Those things under repository where we will be using for maybe maintaining all the artifacts. So if you want to know maybe what is the previous deployed version, if you want to roll back, we can immediately check on the artifact, and then we can deploy in the concern deployment actually. Okay, and also the continuous feedback, maybe the feedback from the our build and release pipeline, or it could be from the our application also. So all those feedbacks we have to integrate with the chatting medium, like Teams or email or Slack. So for example, if there is any some background processing is running, if it is failing for some of the reason, then at least we need to be alert, so that we can see maybe what is the next remediation steps to reprocess the batch, or maybe in the next time how we can avoid it. So otherwise, right, if you don't have a continuous feedback or anything, we need to have some dedicated support person over there, and then they need to constantly watching all the process everything. But that is somewhat time consuming, and the cost, it also not a good cost effective solution. So that is why we have to integrate all the actions with the chatting medium. So if there is any failure, we can post the message in the Teams channel, so that everyone will be understand, and if it is a very important or something, then everyone will work on that particular issue immediately. Okay, and then the secrets management. Okay, so for example, when we are deploying some other application, right, the artifact will be same in all the environment. The same artifact only will be we will be deploying into the other environments. But how we are going to manage the secrets, like for example, if you are deploying the Java microservices, okay, so there could be the secrets like the database password, or you are connecting the FTP server for maybe pushing the files. So that is the what is the FTP password. So those kind of important credentials, right, we should not be stored in maybe the source code or the Azure DevOps also. So for that we need to have uh, some of the specific the features that is that is the only we will be using for the keys and secrets management. So here we can have all the secrets, and those keys and all will be referring in our application code. Okay, so to just connect that, maybe we will they will be providing some access token. So that will be maybe that will be valid for some period of time, and if it is after that expiration, it maybe it won't work. So even if someone or if some hackers got the access token, they cannot do anything with that. Maybe after 5 minutes or something it will expire. So that we have to implement the secrets management. So that also one of the important thing, because if it is the small projects, right, maybe in the DevOps, right, maybe if you can think like maybe those simple projects, maybe you can be thinking like maybe it's not much value add to that particular project. Maybe when you are thinking it perspective of hundred or thousands of microservices, so we cannot maintain by all of the things in the manual. Even if it is the small service, small application, we know that this is the FTP and then this is the database password. But in the real time scenario, there can be many secrets and keys you have to deals with that. So that we need to have the standardized secrets management. So in that space, the key vault and HashiCorp vault, the particular tool will help in this area. Okay, and then the configuration management, Ansible, Chef, Puppet. So in that one, the Ansible nowadays it's a very popular one, and so mostly like, right. So for example, you have the hundreds of maybe the application servers. Maybe let's I am taking it like maybe the .NET version, .NET web servers are there, and inside that we will be hosting some kind of APIs. Okay, but now we need to update the .NET Core, the runtime version from 2.0 to 3.0 something. So that case, maybe we cannot log into each and every VM, and we cannot update manually, right? So that's not the good best practices in the DevOps. So the what the Ansible and all it is doing, like you will be having the script. When you are just running the script, it will update the version in all the hundreds of servers actually. So in this phase, the configuration management it will work, and then the infrastructure as code. So for example, if I am creating some resources in the Azure, okay, so the one way is you can go to the Azure portal, you can create the all the resources manually, but that is the one way, but is that's not the good way. So that is in this point of maybe the developers point of view, it is good just for a learning, but from the operations perspective, maybe once you have created the script, whatever the environment you need, by just running the script, you can create the identical step setup actually. Okay, but if you are creating the manually, it's not a good solution. But if you are creating as the script, maybe you can whenever you are running it, maybe it will automatically update or create the infrastructure. Okay, for example, currently you have the dev and QA environment, and you need to set up the another two environments like UAT1 and UAT2. So you don't need to create, because right in the environment there can be many there would be many resources. We cannot create each and everything, right? Maybe inside the infrastructure there can be many the 30 or 40 sub components, so we cannot create manually, right? So that you can just running the script and providing the concern variables as the arguments, so it will within maybe 5 to 10 minutes it will spin up the environment and it will be ready to use. So in this phase, infrastructure as code will help in this picture. And for example, the ARM templates, it's mainly for the Azure. Okay, and the Terraform is the open source one. The same script, maybe the same the code, maybe we can write the Azure, AWS, GCP infrastructure provisioning using the Terraform. But the ARM templates, we can just use it for the Ansible only. And similar like in AWS, right, they are providing cloud formation, so that can be used for AWS provisioning. And Terraform, you can use it for the Azure, GCP, and AWS, and even another other cloud as well. Okay, and then the project management. So you will be knowing that. So the Jira, we can most of them will be using that. But in the Azure, right, in the inside the Azure DevOps, they are providing the Azure boards as the service. So there we can configure the there we can configure the create the backlog and all the sprint activities, right? We can do from there itself, all the Azure boards and all. Okay, so if you have any queries in the tooling set, yeah, you can let me know. I will give some other intro as well. Even there are many other tools also available, so these are all the things so mostly important, so that's why I'm adding here. Even maybe the database as a code, right? Like Mebrod said now, the Redgat, so that also one of the tool for the database one, but this is mainly for the Azure DevOps, so we are not adding it here. Okay, but when you are integrating other stuff, right, like Ansible or other thing, so it also will be same like the red other plugins integration, so you will be able to do the red. Okay, I will move to the next one. Okay, so this one maybe earlier we said, right, the Azure DevOps. Okay, so this is the SaaS tool, maybe the software. The SaaS means, right, it is the software as a service, like you will be using the Office 365 everything, right? So that is we are consuming as the service, so that is why we are calling it like SaaS tool. So similar, like you can try to understand what is the IaaS, PaaS, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. You can just to try to understand that one also. Maybe in the upcoming session and all we can discuss about that. Okay, so in the SaaS tool, right, in the Azure DevOps, this is the one-stop solution for many of the maybe the concept we have seen in the last maybe the last slide. Okay, so for example, the project management, here we are using they are providing Azure boards, source control management, the Azure repos. So for example, they are providing the two option, like team foundation version control and as like the Git one. Okay, and then the continuous integration and then continuous deployment, we can use the Azure pipelines. And then artifacts management, we can use the Azure artifacts. And even the Azure DevOps, right, this is the native the Microsoft product. So I think most of the Office 365, the Active Directory and all, it will be automatically integrated. So you don't need to do anything for that one. But so that, yeah, if you are mostly using the Microsoft product, most of the things will be integrated. Maybe like you, if you want to alert something in the Teams, maybe Microsoft Teams or so at the time maybe those integration also and all, it will be easy in the Azure DevOps. But when you want to deploy some third party plugins integration, maybe the Redgate or the maybe other things, right, the Datadog, maybe if any other plugins, so we have to configure by manually. But yeah, there are some standard procedures are that, yeah, this is something easy only, yeah, we can do that. So here the when we can say the overview, so they are providing Azure boards for the project management, the repos for the source control management, pipelines for the CI, the continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines, and the artifacts for managing the artifacts. And then maybe here we can have the class libraries also. Maybe for example, if you have some common library and then you need to share across your organization or within your team, you can push the DLL to the Azure artifacts, and then you can share it with other peer developers, so that within their local machine they can download it, and then they will be able to use in their application. Okay, and apart from that, they will have some own integration of the Microsoft products and the other maybe the popular one. But if you need any other tooling something, then you have to check the maybe the Microsoft Azure DevOps and then the particular third party tools integration compatibility. And if there is some available, yeah, we can do that. But I'm just saying for an example, the Redgate, maybe there will be some plugins will be available, we have to use that. And apart from that, there are launch darkly for the futures flow released deployment, the launch darkly. So there are many plugins available, and so that actually we can use that. Maybe here, maybe we have to integrate GitHub, and for some of the application, right, they will be using GitHub for the source code repository, and pipeline they will be using it for the CA and CD pipelines. So in this case, yeah, you have to enable the integration between the Azure DevOps and then the GitHub. So those things and all, yeah, we can see that in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so if you have